So hello and welcome everybody to our last in the series of 3 webinars focused on RaySearch's next generation OIS, RayCare. My name is Vanessa Ashby. I'm the Business Development Manager here at RaySearch, and I will be moderating today's session. I just want to start by reminding everybody that the previous 2 sessions, the previous 2 webinars are available now on our webpage. So if you missed them, feel free to go in there and watch them, watch the recordings. And I also want to start by with a little bit of housekeeping. So during today's webinar, you can add questions in the question and answer section during the session, and we'll do our best to address as many as possible afterwards. But back to today's presenters, we will hear Yet and Ahmed from the Iridium Cancer Network, and they're going to share their experiences around streaming treatment planning workflows in RayCare. So take it away, you guys.
Hi, welcome indeed. So we will talk a bit about what we did with RayCare and what we will do with RayCare the last year and also the next year, I would say. And we try to streamline our planning workflows, actually. We're looking for lean, safe, and efficient flows, as probably all of you are doing. These are our conflicts of interest. So just to start with small introduction, the Iridium Netwerk, for the people who do not know it, it's located in Belgium, in the north of the country, and we are covering quite a big part, as we are a network hospital, actually, or the radiotherapy department is part of a network. Different hospitals are referring patients to us, and at 4 different locations, we actually have linacs where we can treat patients. In total, we treat over 6,000 treatments a year, so that's quite a lot on 10 linacs. We have 2 CT scanners and also brachytherapy. The most important thing is the software side, so we rely on a few suppliers for software. It's RaySearch, so both for RayStation and RayCare. We have surface scanning. We have all the Linux are from Varian. And for the QA, we rely for both patient and machine QA on Synuclear. So it's a limited vendor approach, and with this approach, we try to implement things as lean as possible. And because we treat a lot of patients, we are looking for efficiency gains, actually, and we try to find a way to have a smooth way between our CT simulation and the treatment of the patient at the linac. And we are using RayStation and also RayCare already for a couple of years for that. It all started in 2018, where we started doing SBRT and stereotactic brain treatment planning in RayStation, and using RayCare at that moment as the workflow management system for these treatments. More recently, and it's less than a year ago, in May 2023, we started to move over all the other pathologies for external beam planning from ARIA Eclipse towards RayCare and RayStation. It started in May last year with the Euro patients. And then after every couple of weeks, we moved over to another pathology. And the final here on the slide is the breast, which was switched in December 2023. And it's in January 2024, actually TBI also is now planned in RayStation. And now everything is almost in there. The way we look for efficiencies, it's both in RayCare, but we will talk more about this later. That's my colleague Ahmed will do that. But of course, also some RayStation scripts are important because if you want to increase your efficiency, the scripts can provide that, taking over manual actions, but also just increasing your safety and all these repeatable jobs can be handled. Also, what I like on the slide is the AI icon of RaySearch from the machine learning department. And also that is largely implemented in our department. So both for segmentations as for planning, we rely a lot of them, and they're all embedded in the scripts as well. So just also there trying to find the efficiencies. But yeah, moving over pathologies from one OIS and TPS to another, it's not really a spoiler, I assume, but that gives you headaches. The last year, we organized a lot of things to make this as smooth as possible. We organized a lot of trainings. It was in Stockholm on site, given by local people, given by RaySearch. There were demo sessions. We wrote some procedures. We yeah, we did some video recordings to help people out how to make certain treatment plans in RayStation. There were discussions, brainstorm sessions, yeah, you name it. I think we organized it, and yeah, we got some headaches not only from trying how to organize it, but also after the switch, just yeah, because you have to change it, yeah, the backbone of your department. And yeah, you learn a lot, you learn every day. And I'm not convinced that there is a smooth way you can make it as smooth as possible, but probably the headaches, they will never disappear. And having said that, yeah, we will start doing even more. So it's not stopping bit with what we did last year. So this was part one of the story. And all these patients, all these 6,000 treatments, they are now planned in RayStation via RayCare. So the patient that enters our hospital or department is registered in RayCare. But to be able to treat the patient, we still send the plan to ARIA. The appointments of the LINAC are still scheduled in ARIA. And so RayCare is still today the workflow management system, while ARIA is still the record and verify system. And the plan for 2024 is to even change that. And we are working on integrating RayCare with our TrueBeams. So now we hope not to get headaches, or not only headaches, but I'm also hoping that my head will not explode in 2024, because even more things has to change. More integrations has to build. We have to rethink how we will organize our treatment courses. The appointment scheduling will change, the offline review process will change, the reporting will change, and many, many things more. Okay, it's not only me, we have an entire team that is working on this, but it's even more people more people's work that will be affected by this change. So it's again a lot of work. So it sounds that we are crazy at Iridium and that we are doing very strange things in our department, maybe. But actually, I would like more to say that we work hard and we like to play even harder. And this is quite recent information, but the end of January, that's not a very long time ago, we had the first test weekend here at Iridium, and we actually did connect RayCare to our TrueBeams. It's not clinical yet. It was a test. It was a debug weekend, you can say. It was trying to find bugs in RayCare and the TrueBeam integration part. And the two screenshots on the left you see are actually the first screenshots ever made of a clinical installation of RayCare on a TrueBeam. So on the left you see a patient queue of a RayCare schedule, and the middle picture is a TrueBeam with a plan and all the information that is coming from RayCare. And on the right side you see that a lot of people were involved in actually making this happen. You also see on the slide that there was already a second test weekend, so that was last weekend. No pictures yet. I did not have time to update my presentation between Tuesday morning and today. And another thing that I can add is that actually in 3 hours, the third test weekend will actually start. So I think we are here quite excited that we can say, and we cannot say a lot, it's not yet clinical yet, but at least we and a lot of other people from both Varian and RaySearch work very hard. And it's actually working. So we are hoping for a clinical release soon. But yeah, doing all this, it's of course a lot of work. So yeah, still looking for the efficiency gains. And one of the things which we are currently working on, and that we hope to achieve when we are live with RayCare on the STXs, is to get rid of the administrative burden we actually have in our department. And for example, if we have to approve a plan, we approve it currently in RayStation, in ARIA, but also in our hospital information system. And we have multiple approvals. You see 4 of them on the left side. And actually, one of the nice things that RayCare can tackle is that these approvals will be in RayCare, so we can limit the use of our HIS hopefully as soon as possible. And you see on the right side that you need for RayCare, you see there are 5 icons, 2 in orange and 3 in green. And if they're all green, you can actually go to your LINAC and treat your patient. And this is what we are trying to implement in a not so lean way, I would say. And with RayCare, we hope to make this more efficient and more smooth, these workflows. But yeah, that's talking about the future. So let's And I said that we moved everything over from ARIA Eclipse, which we were using for a very long time. It's more than a decade. And now with RayCare RayStation, we wonder if we can still have the same efficiency. Nevertheless, that there is still a steep learning curve, of course. And what we did, we looked at some numbers in the RayCare workflow, and it's just the delta between the moment you start a task and the moment you stop a task. And if you look here on both contouring and planning, you can see that the numbers, the time you spend on a task, it's actually quite similar. A difference of 4 to 5 minutes on average. That's I would say nothing. But if we look more into the details of these here at contouring data only, and we can split it per pathology, we see actually more interesting things that happen. And you see that, for example, breast, which was the latest pathology we introduced into RayStation and RayCare, and none of these radogs, for example, were used to working with RayCare and RayStation. You see that we actually lose today a bit of time by making contours in RayStation. All the differences you see are not significant, but okay, it's a little bit less, or we need a little bit more time for breast. Looking at the palliatives, on the other hand, you see that there is a little time gain of a few minutes. And for prostate, which is the pathology we already do for more than half a year, you see that the time gain is actually increasing. So you see that the longer people work with the system, and of course the AI segmentation is also here embedded in RayStation, you see that we start to gain some time. Also here, non-significant differences, but at least we think we see a trend, and hopefully we can confirm in the future, and hopefully also the numbers of the breast contouring, they improve a bit during the coming months. So we can do exactly the same for planning, and then also actually the numbers are quite identical, I would say. So again, for breast, I think that the differences are not that big. For palliative cases, the difference is bigger, and for prostate, we have a time gain of 20 minutes, I would say. And here it's also, of course, the learning curve, but it's also the way you invest in automation, I would say. Breast plans are created with scripts, and they are just setting up your plan. It's the plan design, more or less, that is scripted in our department. The palliative one's the same thing, but the optimizer is also running a bit, not in a very optimal way, but it's at least starting your optimization. And prostate, that's all deep learning based, so both segmentation but also planning. And you see that deep learning planning also takes some time to run, but you see that there the time gain is biggest. So this is for me an important thing to even work harder on the automation part, on the scripting part, and make these things more happy, more fluent. And Ahmed will in a few moments talk even how we can improve it even better with using RayCare. So is it now safe to actually switch your TPS and partially your OIS? It's very hard to give very clear numbers, but here in the department, we often register patients that can start without any administrative error in the flow. And you see on the histogram that after introducing RayCare more and more, we see that we have less errors. It's very hard to say that it's because of RayCare. That's not the point I want to mention here, because the root cause of the errors can be the HIS, it can be ARIA, it can be a RayCare, and on the bottom you see that, for example, the moment we started making electron plans in RayStation, we often forgot to create a 3D render of how the beam enters the patient. In ARIA, this thing was scripted, so we couldn't really forget. But the moment we moved that to RayStation, we did not have time to script this render creation, and that's one of the reasons why, that amount actually did, or more errors occurred there. But the main thing I would say is that I think we can argue that we have equal safety by implementing RayStation and RayCare. And the advantage is that with RayCare and RayStation, it's important to just follow up on what you're doing in your hospital, that you have the numbers and that you can act on them and that you can implement checks and balances to avoid that misery will appear. And that's actually possible with RayCare. And this is, I think, a nice introduction of my colleague, Ahmed.
Yeah. Thank you, Geert. So I'm going to introduce more our configuration implementation of our RayCare workflows. I did that actually with a colleague of mine, Fadwa, who sadly could not be here today. Can I go further? Voila. Oops, that was a spoiler. With this slide, actually, I want just to introduce our clinic a bit by how many patients that we have in a year. We do now, I think, more than over 6,000 treatments. So it was very important for us that we make our workflow as efficient as possible. And for us in our clinic, we came to the conclusion that automation was key. So I'm going to take you all actually on a journey. Actually, I'm going to draw a bit a roadmap towards our semi-automated clinical workflow that we use now in the clinic. That still needs some improvement, but that's what we have now. But before I kick off and showing a bit our workflow, I'm first going to introduce a bit the nomenclature of RayCare because we need to know the system before we can use the system. So I'm going to kick this off with introducing the modules. Actually, the modules in RayCare are the building blocks of your workflow. Having multiple modules in a chain actually creates your workflow of your patients. So for example, you can have a registration module, a simulation module, and a planning module. And every module actually is then divided into activities, and these activities are actually group your tasks, like you can see here. So your task group is in your activities with all your tasks all built into one module. And if you have multiple modules in a chain, you can create a workflow for your patient. A next important thing to know is the context level in RayCare, because based actually on your context level, which is going to be actually linked to the modules that you're going to create, are going to define actually how you're going to use your module in your workflow. For example, here we kick off the context level with patient, which is the highest level. Then we go over to case, care plan, treatment plan level, and then beam sets. If you, for example, only create a workflow based on case level, you cannot divide your workflow. So if you have, for example, multiple plans, you cannot divide that workflow in those different treatment plans. That's why understanding a bit the context levels in RayCare is very important. Like here, for example, that you see here in the picture, you can see plan is actually linked to its proper treatment plan and has thus his proper workflow in RayCare. So we can follow everything up smoothly and nothing is forgotten. So every one of those 4 care plans has then a planning module. Now, the last terminology that I'm going to throw here in this webinar is the placeholder, and this is also an important one because when you're going to create a treatment planning module, then the placeholder as always needs to be defined. But what is actually a placeholder? It's very simple. It's just because before when you add actually your planning module, you don't know your plan at the moment. You have not planned yet, so we don't know. That's why we add actually just a name in its place. Like here, for example, I added SBT right lung based actually on the protocol that I used for this workflow of this patient. And then afterwards, when you have planned in RayStation, you can actually change your placeholder into the actual treatment plan. Like here, for example, it's a bit exaggerated that it's called end-to-end workflow patient test, but just to give you guys an example of what the placeholder actually means. Now we're going to go over the configuration, actually the development of our workflow. So this is a simple workflow in radiotherapy where you start off with a new patient who needs to go through the registration, has to have a CT scan, so the simulation needs to go through planning. We have to prepare the plan for treatment and for the QA, and then in the actual treatment. So how does this translate actually into a RayCare-based clinical workflow? So we start this off with our this is actually our workflow that we use now in the clinic, the modules actually. So we start off with the initial workflow module where our booking administrator needs to create a case and care plan for the patient. Then the booking and administrators have to go through a registration module where they're going to add the treatment start dates and also provide some flagging to the patient. And those flags actually are an additional information for us, for the radiation oncologist, etc. Also, all to know that the patient, for example, is hospitalized, is coming actually for a re-irradiation, etc. Then the patient has to go through the simulation module, and when the CT scan is taken, our RTTs actually create setup instructions, and in there they have to select a main planning image, and that main planning image links actually a case for us in RayStation. And that's how the journey begins for our planning module, where we're going to go through the image registration, doing the actually planning of our treatment. And here also are some scripted tasks introduced, but for the scripted tasks, it's for later in this presentation. And then when our plan is made, we go over to a treatment preparation module where we're going to prepare our plan for QA, do the supervision, and also in here are some scripted tasks, but that as well is for later. But the delivery is then, so the treatment delivery module, we do not have it yet, so we are still, as you can see, we still do things in parallel. So we're currently still providing the treatment and the planning and the scheduling, planning of the scheduling all in ARIA. Yeah, all in ARIA actually. But for example, still in addition, when we actually want to, when we are actually supervising our plan, what if we want to send the plan back? Can we still reuse our modules? Can we add more modules? How are we actually, can we actually do that? So in RayCare, we can actually reuse modules. So we can actually add planning modules and treatment preparation modules and other modules as much as we want. So we can create actually a smooth transition when we actually reject our supervision in the treatment preparation module. We can actually add a planning module again, and the whole cycle begins again. But then there is also a scenario where the patient has already gotten one fraction or two fractions of his currently treatment plan, but the radiation oncologist says, we need to replan this plan, but how do we do that? How is this translated in RayCare, and how do we use that translation actually in RayCare? So for us, we provide actually an order module that is actually made by the radiation oncologist. They give actually an order in RayCare in order to add actually an evaluation module. That's how we call it, how we do our adaptive planning, in order to for example, do a simulation again, go through the treatment planning again, etc. So we add an evaluation module where then the simulation or the planning is embedded in, and we re-enter the cycle again in the treatment preparation module. And that's a bit how, on a module-based level, how our workflow works. Now, how are we actually configuring these tags that fuel actually our workflow? As you can see, this is a screenshot of the admin environment in RayCare, where we create our tasks. As you can see here, we are in the planning module. We already created here some activities and tasks, but just for example here, you have the task of review dose planning, and in here you can enter your display name, your task description, the roles. Since this is a radiation oncologist task, you can add a radiation oncologist, and you can add teams as well. These teams and teams, for example, for the radiation oncologist are the pathology group, for example, head and neck, breast, etc. As you can see here, there is no teams entered, but I'm going to talk to you about this later, why we do not do that in our clinic. You can also add the workspace, so the tasks are actually linked to the place where we actually do the task. For example, if you click the task, then in RayCare, it opens then the workspace in RayStation where you want to go. And you can also do some due date triggering where you want to anchor actually the due date of your task. More importantly is the ready trigger. So I'm placing actually this visualization because you cannot really visualize this in RayCare, but in order to ready trigger the review dose planning task here, for example, because our two previous tasks here in this slide is the plan check. This is a scripted task, and a revised plan check. Both, as you can see here, are linked to the same task. And you can actually provide some conditions to the review dose planning task here, where you say that when your plan check, the script is completed and everything has gone fine, it's okay, it can open up this task. But for example, if your scripted task is not okay and goes over to the revised plan check task, you still want your review dose plan to open if the revised plan check is okay. So that's why you add an or addition to the ready trigger, to the conditions, which is the revised plan check is completed and everything is okay, and then the review dose planning can open as well. And that's how you configure a bit actually your workflows in RayCare. And a task, like I said, but previously with the plan check can have a result yes or no. And for example, the review dose planning with us has a result approved and rejected. So you can provide as well results to your task in order to provide different scenarios. Now I'm going to give a bit more of a visual example of how these task results and triggers work. Like here, for example, the plan check in a situation where the plan check is okay and has as a result yes, so the plan check will turn green in just my show. The revised plan check is cancelled, and then the review dose planning gets open. This is how it's visualized in RayCare, not with the color green and red and yellow that I provide, but you get the idea as well here for the rejected path of the review dose planning. If your dose planning gets rejected, then the revised dose planning here opens up, and normally the next step should be the treatment preparation module, which in case is only the case when the review dose planning is approved, but here it stays on pending. And this all we can configure actually in RayCare, that it flows this way. Now, I talked earlier about adding actually new modules. So here is an example of how we do that in our clinic. So if your supervision is rejected, we go over to a cleanup task where we delete some files, and then we add actually a replanning module, which is then opened here. And then we actually start from the beginning again, and we can go through the image registration again, the contouring and the planning, if all of this needs to be redone. Now I'm going to go over a bit more of the interesting part. How are we actually automating our workflow? So what are the scriptings? So for like I said earlier, when we actually configure actually our workflow, I did not put teams in the tasks actually of the radiation oncologist, and that is because we actually provide one flow for all pathologies. So we are not going to create a workflow for each pathology. So for example, a planning module for the head and neck, a planning module for the breast, a planning module for another pathology. So if we create it this way, we can create actually an infinite amount of workflows that we need to configure. We need to check if everything is okay. And if we do one change in one flow, we need to do the other changes in all the other flows, and it gets a whole mess. So what we did is provide just one script, which is the assigned tumor group script. And that script, based on the tumor group, for example, then here is the brain neuro, is going to put the teams to the tumor group as a team. That's why we didn't add the team yet in the configuration, to the review dose planning task and the patient modeling, which are both radiation oncologist tasks. And that's how we actually provide one flow for all pathologies. Another scripted task that we provide in our chain is the image preparation script, where it's actually run as a background script in RayCare, so you do not need to open RayStation at all. And this is here, the create image registration task, and it runs in background, creates some registration between images, creates our body contouring, our external, and when it's okay, it does it all automatically. It goes over to the patient modeling. So we do not have any intervention of a user, only in the situation if something goes wrong and the result says no, okay, we need to check this, then a backup manual task opens Like, for example, here is the device image registration. And the same logic is actually followed by our plan check script, which is just checking a bit our plan after we do the treatment planning, checks a bit our jaws, our contouring if there are some derived structures, etc. And here it follows the exact same logic. It runs in the background. If it's okay, then it goes over to review those planning. If not, then we need to do our manual check. So what are a bit our challenges? Because not everything was smoothly as always. I can just provide this slide, sums a bit of how our journey was a bit with creating the workflows and all the challenges that we had. So it was not just configuration and implementation. You also had some workflow management. You needed to add module activities, tasks. You had the RayCare team home, the procedures that you needed to write, the order, the context level. I can just go over all of the automation in our clinical workflow. One specifically difficult problem that occurred a lot was the placeholder. Providing that the placeholder, for example, here needs to be unique within a case. So, and this one, and actually the same error is an active module with the same treatment plan or beam set selection already exists. It means actually that you cannot reuse the placeholder that you place in a module in another module. That we didn't know. That provided a lot of difficulties for us. We now found actually a bit of a workaround. And as well, for example, if you set actually a plan in your placeholder that was used in RayStation and afterwards you remove it, then the flow gets stuck as well. So RayCare cannot find then the plan in RayStation anymore, and then the planning module will not continue if it does not find the plan. So that was also some difficulties that we struggled with while implementing actually our workflow. So that's why in the beginning I said we need to know the system before we use the system, to actually counter a bit this. But we cannot account actually for every scenario, but this was one of the scenarios we had to go through a lot in order to fix it. And now I can provide you a bit our clinical workflow, what we use nowadays. So it starts off with our initial workflow module, which is creating a case and care plan. And then we add the registration module, adding the prescription, flagging, and the treatment start dates, goes over to the simulation, and then to the planning module, where we're going to register our registrate our images and do the planning, etc. And then the last part is the treatment preparation module, where we're going to prepare our plan for QA, do some supervision, and finish it up with doing for delivery. And this is a bit of an ARIA part, except if we have to do an evaluation module. But where are here then the tasks that are completely in the background and are automated? I point them out for you here. For now, we have 7 tasks, which is scripted and in the background, and provide us an automation in our workflow. But some tasks have also scripts, but are in the foreground, and that I pointed out as well. So the perform patient modeling has some contouring scripts that are providing assistance to our radiation oncologist. We also have a script that creates actually our planning, and then provides also some auto planning, for example, the prostate planning that my colleague Geert already talked about. And we have other scripts, and I can provide you a small list of what we have here. And those are all scripts created actually in Python. And now for our future prospects. So we are still not yet at our finish line. This is a bit the structure that we have now. So from our HIS, we send actually and create workflows in ARIA and in RayCare simultaneously, but most of the workflows are done in RayCare. And the scheduling is still done in ARIA, but that we want to change into scheduling in RayCare, and also the use of the treatment course management. But this is a whole new thing that I don't think I have the time to talk about. And all of this is then sent to our variant system. So we still have a lot of work, but this is a bit what we did with our clinical workflow with RayCare and all the others. So thank you all for your attention.
Thank you to both of you for a really interesting presentation. I will just start by reminding everybody that if you have any questions, you can enter them in the Q&A via the Q&A functionality. And we will start with a few here. So when you guys in the beginning talked about going over to RaySearch products, you chose SBRT and the SRS patients as the first indication. And the question is why was that chosen? And then how much of those workflows can be reused from one indication to another? I think you talked a little bit about that later in the presentation, but the first question still stands.
Okay.
Yeah, the SBRT story was because we at that time were buying a new Linac and we were looking for some other TPS, and at that time we bought RayStation. So that was more like, yeah, some coincidences, I would say. Reusing stuff is important, and I think it's a challenge. It's a bit shown in the presentation, but also largely hidden, of course. We put a lot of efforts in reusing stuff, structuring data, and it's actually that all the scripts we use in RayStation are structured or getting data out of a config file, and it turns out now that it's that structure that actually RayCare is using as well. So I think, and that was maybe the most difficult part, is to structure your data, to organize your department, to get a lot of people in line to go for a certain way of working. And I think we are lucky that we chose maybe not the ideal, but close to ideal path, and that it's more or less already today in sync with RayCare. So if we now implement more in RayCare and RayCare connects even more with RayStation, I think that the work we did in the past can for a very large extent just be reused, and hopefully the work will become less and less.
Okay, you guys talked a lot about automation. How much scripting experience do you need before you start scripting in RayStation and RayCare?
Yeah, I think I will answer the question as well. I think a nice thing is that a lot of my colleagues by now followed the scripting course in Stockholm. I have to admit, I never did so. And I think I wrote 70 to 80% of the scripts, including all the GUIs and things like that. So I think courses are nice, you can learn a lot, but just being enthusiastic is maybe much more important. And yeah, if you're interested, just start with it and see where it ends. And probably you get lost somewhere, but hopefully in paradise. And then, yeah, who cares about that?
I think I will take the next question. Can you connect other third-party systems to RayCare, for example, hypothermia or KV treatment machines? I can say we currently don't have a direct interface to either of those two. In general, RaySearch is very focused or dedicated to open interfaces and really allowing our customers to choose the devices they see fits the purpose best. So pending additional interoperability agreements, we will try and increase the interfaces and what we're interfacing to, but at the moment, it's not possible to connect those machines directly. One more question here. So which user group do you think sees the biggest efficiency gains from the automation in RayCare? Is it the physicists in the planning workflows or the therapists, for example?
I think based on the scripts that we use now, our RTTs are not that involved in that, but our physicists and our radiation oncologists now see the biggest advantages in using the scripts, as we provide as well some automated tasks in the workflow, so they don't have to actually do a manual intervention for these things. And then some tasks that are already explained, the patient modeling and the dose planning have some scripts in it in order to for the one, the patient modeling, creating actually our contourings, and for the dose planning, creating actually the plan itself. So that helps a lot in time efficiency, and as well in I think the most important thing is the time efficiency in this, because it's for the small task, like for example the scripting of the plan, the crate planning scripting, it creates your beams, etc. So you don't lose your time into doing this manually. So it has a lot of advantages.
Okay, there's a question whether or not we can talk about the side of the project team working on the integration with ARIA. We can't say too much detail. It's not a released product yet, but what we can say from RaySearch's side is that in all of these projects, we have, of course, a multidisciplinary team. So it's both the developers and it's clinical specialists and what I think most people are used to being titled product managers. And of course, it's a combined effort between ourselves and Varian. I think that's what we can say at the moment until the product is released, and we can talk a little bit more in a little bit more detail about that. And if there are any specifics that, as a response to the person that asked that question, you can always reach out to your local salesperson and we can talk about those discussions in more detail. And I think we'll try and wrap up. And I would just like to remind you all that we have additional webinars that are currently being planned, and for commitments to time and dates for those, you can always keep an eye on our webpage or on LinkedIn. And finally, a huge thank you to both of you guys, Ahmed and Ged, again. And I hope the remainder of you have a nice afternoon, and we see you again soon. Thank you.